I'm Markellos Diorinos. I'm the CEO of the fine folks at Bryq. We're a talent intelligence platform, and that's a loaded term. So what we're trying to do is predictive analytics. We're trying to figure out who's going to perform well, and we're using this both for talent acquisition, but also internally. When you're thinking about scenarios like internal mobility, or you want to understand performance of the 9 boxes, career paths, those kind of things.
So is the total career from hiring until?
That's always the dream, right? We want to follow the person from the moment, make sure that the right person enters the company, but also that they follow the right path within the company. And that's essential to success these days. You can no longer rely on just hiring new people all over the time. If you don't make the best use of the people you already have, you end up losing.
What's the biggest problem you solve for hiring?
It's about figuring out, as I said, predictive talent performance. How are people going to perform? And you know, a lot of times people do this based on standard tests. So it's like, here's my test for call center agent, which is great, but it's one definition. And then you realize that no 2 call center agents or no 2 project managers are the same. So our first step was to introduce an AI that actually parses your job description. So it looks at the actual job that the person has to perform and then builds a profile based on that. We still make people go through our online assessment. It takes 10 to 20 minutes depending on the role. The assessment is one, it's always the same, but then we match the requirements with what people bring in, and you can take all of your candidates, whether you have 10 or 100,000, and we're going to rank them based on how well they fit what you're doing. The great thing about that is that you can immediately see the best people for the job. You can now don't have to screen through all of them. And for each person, we're going to tell you what are the advantages and potential pitfalls. So when I look at a candidate and I have a discussion with them, I can have a structured interview where we even prepare questions about things that might be challenges for the individual.
If you look at the main benefits of using your tool as a recruiter or HR?
The first one is quality of hire. You're simply getting better people. The second is time to hire. If you before had to go and review tens or hundreds of people for a role, now we narrow it down pretty fast so that you can get to the ones that matter. And last but not least, diversity, equity and inclusion. By using objective criteria for who's coming in, we actually see a great improvement into the kind of people. A very common feedback from our customers is not only that I hired a great person for role A, B or C, is that I hired someone who's great, and it is not someone I would have normally picked on because the resume wasn't that great. But when I saw that they're promising and I talked to them, I actually saw the value, and this is now our star performer.
What makes you stand out comparing to other tools?
We take a very different approach. We go very customized. So, you know, if you go and take an assessment, you're going to find an assessment for salesperson. We found that different sales teams have different performance drivers. So being able to customize it to the role and sometimes to the very specific areas, even with the same job description, our next step is where we go and we correlate performance data with psychometrics, and we build completely tailored profiles. So roles that previously looked the same, for example, call center agents for different teams, they have the same job description. Now, you can actually have different profiles for each one of them. We've seen the same role, depending if they're serving the German or the Dutch-speaking market, having a different success profile. This is the kind of accuracy that you don't get anywhere, and that translates into a bunch of roles, whether you're talking about call center, front-end and hourly workers, you know, your delivery agents, warehouse associates, or whether you're talking about things like developers. You know where developers fail? Not because they don't know how to code in Java. They fail because they hate the company, because they hate the role, because they hate the environment. Being able to put culture into all of that, and this is one thing that we do really well. We're fitting not only for the role, but also for the culture of the company. This is what gives us a competitive advantage. By the way, the last thing, but most important, is time to implementation. This thing works really easily. You throw in things in the AI gives you answers within seconds. You can be up and running in a week or two. A lot of people are going to use the standalone because they don't have some other systems, but we integrate with all the majors, right? So whether you're using SuccessFactors, Lever, Greenhouse, our friends from Smart Recruiters, any of those systems, we integrate with them, because it's important to keep the experience simple for the recruiter. They have enough in their hands already.
So, and it's also an integration with the HR information system?
We do integrations with different parts where we get in performance data and we combine them. Because remember, people tend to think about role performance as something static, but what we've seen is that every quarter that goes by, things change. As the world around us change, so do the requirements for your personnel. So being integrated with those systems is crucial so that you can keep improving. Don't think about role performance as a static thing in time. Don't use descriptions and setups that you had done 5 years ago. The world is a very, very different place.
What kind of customers are using it?
The majority of our customers are corporate, and they tend to be larger corporates when they have a lot of people for each role. We have a support package even for startups, because startups have a lot of value of getting every hire right. So we support that, but that's kind of a niche. We're really going after the corporates and those companies that are 500 people and above. And we have the occasional recruitment agency or marketplaces, people who want to enrich their world with our data to make better decisions.
And the roadmap for next year, how does it look like?
We've been really focusing on that second aspect of getting people from who've been hired and using them. So we've been doing a lot of work in internal mobility. We've been doing work in 9 boxes. Our future for the next 6 months is employee portals. How can we take all this information and give it back to the hands of the actual user, who's no longer the HR, but it's the employee. The employee has to figure out their career path, the employee who needs to improve. So it's going to be all about completing that vision and giving more power to the employees themselves.